The last time I drove this Lexus, it nearly brought me to tears. I was worked up emotionally because that's how good the naturally aspirated V8 powered LC500 and the convertible variant really is. It is a masterclass of craftsmanship, engineering, and execution that Lexus is capable of carrying out. But the news we're getting from Japan today might actually make me shed a tear or two. If you missed my video last week on the IS500, which has the same V8, different transmission though, and a totally different vehicle in the IS sedan, watch my video on the Climax edition of the IS500. We're getting something similar. It's not called the Climax edition. Here in the United States, it's called like the Ultimate Edition, but it's very much the same vehicle. Different paint color though. They're getting incognito on it. We're getting this new wind color, but we're following up with news coming out of Japan. Apparently, it's actually coming out any moment now because it's the 26th over there, and this is when that information drop should be coming. And if I get it, I'll go ahead and put it in the comments, and I'll pin it in the comments for you guys to check out the official images of this final edition, or is it? We'll talk about that today, of the LC500 coupe. If you're wondering where I'm at, I am actually in the Encinitas area, Carlsbad area. I'll be driving this vehicle. Well, actually, at the time you're watching this, I'm driving this vehicle. This is the new CR-V. And I looked up to see if there are some. They're already out there at dealers, guys. They're already out at dealers, the CR-V hybrid. And I'll be able to share my driving impressions of this trail sport June 30th. So stay tuned for that. Back to the matter at hand. This is the Pinnacle Edition, which is funny, right? We just had the IS500 Climax Edition. Here's the LC500 Pinnacle Edition. And like the IS500, there is a limit. Now, the IS500 had 500 units. For the Japanese market, they're only getting 200 units of this Pinnacle Edition. Now, you will be able to get in the coupe or the convertible this final edition. Just keep in mind, this is the final edition, more than likely for Japan. But there really hasn't been any major updates. You know, the LC500 is one of those cars that they never gave a refresh. They never get an F Sport. It never got an F Sport Performance. It never got an F model. And it deserved essentially all of those things. Instead, Lexus, they just made small improvements on the LC500 year after year after year. All right, so what are the changes for 2026? Well, they changed the door striker shape to improve rigidity. All right, the LC500 that's always been one of its weak points, is that it's kind of sloppy when you push it to its limit, especially on a track, and it doesn't have the best cooling out of the factory. But they've made changes to that, especially with the body rigidity over the years. The brake calipers are no longer orange for the special editions. They are now red. Cool. Now, this one is going to hit hard for me because they only offered Sonic Copper, what we call Copper Crest, for maybe a year or two on the LC500. So if they get rid of Sonic Copper, that's not good. Also, discontinuation of Naples yellow contrast layering. Not quite sure. This might be a specific interior for some bespoke edition models. I don't know if I've seen this Naples yellow interior, but there isn't a yellow on the outside, and that's called flare yellow stateside. I don't think they would get rid of that. I think it's one of the best colors. Same with Copper Crest and Nori Green. All right, there's so many good, like the LC500 looks good in just about every single color. This is a gorgeous vehicle. They're saying that there's no adaptive headlights that were installed here. Well, if you look at the triple beam LEDs here, the Lexus had to, in order to make this vehicle from the concept to the production version with little changes, at least from the design, they had to redesign the headlights and make them really small. So the AFS, or adaptive front light headlight system, just doesn't apply to the LC500 and its unique cluster of LED headlights. And they mentioned that it doesn't get the 14-inch screen that we see on an NX or RX. I'm fine with that. It used to have a 10-inch screen, and they upgraded it to a 12-inch touchscreen, which doesn't look as good, but it is far more functional than the old screens that didn't even have Apple CarPlay or Android Auto. available, not even in wired configurations. So Lexus owners in Japan get allotted 50 coupes, 50 convertibles. So that's half of the allotment. And then there'll be a general lottery for the additional models, the 50 of the coupe and the 50 of the convertible. Does this spell the doom of the LC500 stateside? And I'm not going to close the door on it quite yet. And here's why. All right. We in the United States actually got the preference here for the IS500. The IS500 announcement for this Ultimate Edition, which Lexus never says in this press document that this is the last IS500. So there's still a chance that this IS500 is just another special edition. All right, based off of the Climax Edition that we see here in Japan. Okay, but the Japanese announcement came well after June 19th versus May 19th, a whole month later compared to our announcement, the IS500 special edition. If it were to go out, the LC500, wouldn't we have maybe an announcement before the Japanese announcement? Or, I mean, the Japanese announcement has been made. So this is kind of like they got this information 2 days ahead of time. I'm just now getting around to it. But the LC500, I think there's still a chance that even if it gets discontinued in Japan, it can still live on the United States for a while. How much longer? I have no idea. And here's the reason. Lexus is working on 2 coupes right now. Lexus has the LFR that actually was just spotted here in California the last couple days. LFR was testing against a AMG GT. So that's going on. We've seen it on track already in camouflage, the Lexus LFR / GR GT3 from Toyota. It could actually be in both Toyota and Lexus lineups, just in different flavors, right? You have the Halo LFR, which is kind of like an LC, like what the LC should have been, but they couldn't make the LC500. They couldn't modify it enough to make it as good as what the LFR is going to be. All right, that car is bred for racing and just so happens to be a Lexus. That's essentially what the LFR is. Probably is announced at Japan Mobility Show this year. That's what I'm thinking. Then you also have a new coupe to replace both the LC and the RC. We know the RC is essentially just dying. They canceled the RCF, and the RC coupe still lives on, but I don't know for how much longer. I think it could be dead after this year, to be honest. All right. So the LC500 still could be pushed until that replacement for the RC / LC. Who knows what they're going to call it? I'd like them to call it the SC once again. Bring the SC nomenclature back. That's the entry level coupe for Lexus. And I still think there's a possibility they could stuff a V8 into it. All right. Maybe not the 5-liter V8, but the new 4-liter twin turbo V8. I think that would make more sense in this modern era. But also, you guys in the comments, if you agree with that. I have a couple other things I wanted to talk about before I let you go. Toyota's just hybridized the Land Cruiser. And you might be saying, Kirk, the only Land Cruiser we have is the J250. And you have no other engine options in the States other than the hybrid version, right? The 2.4 gas. But what's going on here is a 48-volt diesel mild hybrid. All right, they're adding this on here. It's already seen on the Hilux. It'll get better fuel economy. And what's cool is that they put some of the motor generator on top of the engine block so it can still wade into deep water. All right, so the J250 here getting a hybridized 48-volt mild hybrid turbo diesel system. I would love it for it to come to the United States. I would probably prefer it over the 2.4 hybrid here, but it's a forbidden fruit. All right, this is a fun one. Suzuki is releasing instant curry. I know Suzuki hasn't been around the United States since like 2013, something like that. I always forget the date when they pulled out of the United States. Suzuki has a huge footprint in India, and there's actually a few models that get imported into Japan from India, and that's the Nomad and the Franx. And here we are. We have a Hayabusa and a V-Strom and a Jimny and a Swift. These are Suzuki's, some of their most famous vehicles right now. And they get their own curry packets. Instant curry. I wish, if I can find this, I wonder. I still plan on going to Japan this fall. So if I can find these in Japan, I will let you guys know. And that's, oh man, that'd be fun. This is a sobering and yet sad reality. Over at IC Cars, sub $20,000 used car market is essentially gone. In 2019, just 6 years ago, half of all 3-year-old used cars cost $20,000 or less. Today, that number is just over 10%. It's a joke. Car affordability is a complete joke. All right. Subaru bets on new Forester SUV to overcome Trump tariffs. So Subaru is going to be building the Forester stateside this fall. Now, Subaru, 70% of their market, their global market, is the United States market. It's crazy how many Subarus are sold here compared to the rest of the world. But half the cars sold in the United States for Subaru are from Japan. With increasing capacity with this Forester, they're hoping that helps. We'll see though. Subaru is a little bit in trouble because, they're so heavily invested into the United States market, but they don't have heavy United States production. All right, Mitsubishi has 0 U.S. production. People think Mazda is heavily reliant on the United States. That is absolutely true. But Subaru, like I said, relies 70% on the United States market. Honda is next on the list, and they're almost at 40% of Honda's global sales is the United States market. So they're heavily invested here. But the thing with Honda is that the vast majority of the vehicles come from the United States plus Canada plus Mexico. All right. So they're in a much better position compared to Mazda, Mitsubishi, Subaru, Toyota even. Honda's in a better position than Toyota even when it comes to tariffs. So Subaru, they think that they can get by here with making more Foresters stateside. We'll see though. But stay tuned for my Honda CR-V driving impressions. I got a couple cars waiting for me at home to review as well. The Grand Highlander Hybrid Max, as well as the new GMC Terrain. That's in the Denali form. So it gets kind of pricey. I'll see you guys in the comments. Thank you for watching. Have a great day and peace.